Hi there. Hope you're living life to the fullest. This is Jordan, your guide on the quest for boundless longevity. Welcome to the Longevity Unlocked podcast, a place where I dive deep into the world of those extraordinary everyday heroes who are rewriting the rules of aging. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce you to Terry Tucker, whose life journey is a testament to the extraordinary heights one can reach even in the face of difficult challenges. Terry joins us on Longevity Unlocked to share his unique and positive perspective on the concepts of mindset and self-improvement. His story is a beacon of hope and inspiration, reminding us that life's challenges can be the very catalysts that lead to our transformation and growth. Thank you again to Terry for joining us, and to our listeners, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode of Longevity Unlocked. So let's get into it.
Alrighty. So welcome, Terry. Thanks for coming on the podcast and carving out some time for me. And let's get straight into it. So can you share a little bit about your upbringing and how it has influenced the person you are today?
Sure. Well, first of all, Jordan, thanks for having me on. I'm really looking forward to talking with you today. Yeah, I'm the oldest of three boys. You can't tell this from looking at me, but I'm 6'8" tall, and I was able to go to college to play basketball. I have two brothers. We were all at least college athletes. I have one brother who was a professional basketball player as well. And I really think our parents taught us the value of family, of loving each other, of caring for each other, of supporting each other. And my parents used to do what I call divide and conquer parenting. So, I would have a game on a particular night at a certain time, and my brother would have a practice at the exact same time at another location. And my parents were always sort of dividing and conquer. I'll go to Terry's game, I'll go to Larry's practice, and things like that. And I really think I was very fortunate. My story is not, my dad was an alcoholic and he beat my wife or he beat my mom. That was not the case. My parents loved each other, and they put a lot of that love, a lot of that discipline, a lot of those values into my brothers and I. And I think we have benefited from that as we become adults and had families of our own.
Mm-hmm. And I guess now moving on through later into your life, maybe when you started to think about changing jobs or roles, how did any of that kind of influence your life going forward?
Yeah, my grandfather was a Chicago police officer. Chicago is one of the largest cities in the United States from 1924 to 1954. And he was actually shot in the line of duty when my dad was an infant. It was not a serious injury, he was shot in the ankle. But my dad always remembered the stories my grandmother told of that knock on the door of, Mrs. Tucker, grab your son, come with us, your husband's been shot. So when I expressed an interest in going into law enforcement, my dad was absolutely not. You're going to college, you're going to major in business, you're going to get out, get a great job, get married, have 2.4 kids, and live happily ever after. But that's what my dad wanted me to do. That's not what I felt my purpose in life was. So as you and I were talking before the recording, when I graduated from college, my father was dying of cancer. So I had a choice. I could have said, sorry, Dad, I know you're dying, but I'm going to go blaze my own trail. I'm going to do my own thing. Or out of love and respect for you, I will do what you want me to do. So understanding the backstory, my resume makes a little more sense when you understand that. My first two jobs were in business, and that was really out of respect for my father. I did learn a lot, but those were not my purpose, I didn't think, in life. And I sort of joke, I did what every good son did. I waited until my father passed away, and then I followed my dreams of getting into law enforcement, which I did at a fairly late age. I was a 37-year-old rookie police officer, which by most accounts is pretty late to be doing that. I do know that I took a whole lot more Tylenol in the police academy than my younger counterparts and things like that. But I really, my parents wanted us to be happy. And I think being in law enforcement absolutely made me happy. And I hope that, when I meet my dad again, that he will be proud of what I did with my life.
Mm-hmm. And I guess I wanted to ask you, Terry, would you say, or would you, if you had to do it all again, would you stay in the business side of things, even if you didn't, I guess, feel it was your purpose? Or would you still do the same thing?
I'd still do the same thing. I mean, it was my purpose. I really believe that. And I think a lot of people have a purpose in life and they let it die and they just settle for where they're at. I think I never let my purpose die. I always kept it alive. It was always something I was interested in. I may have been working in business, but I was reading books on law enforcement, and I was watching TV shows and movies. And I know those are not, you've got to condense everything into 30 minutes or 60 minutes. And life doesn't work that way. I understand that. But that was what I wanted to do. And so it was my interest. And so I would encourage everybody, find that purpose in life. Viktor Frankl, the concentration camp survivor during World War II, and went on to be a psychologist, wrote all kinds of books. He said, we have a moral responsibility to find the reason that we were put on the face of this earth and use our unique gifts and talents to follow and to make that reason happen.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Terry. What would you say if someone was listening to this? Like, do you have any kind of tips to kind of help them on that journey to kind of finding their purpose?
Yeah, I always, when I speak to young people, groups of young people, and that, I always tell them, especially, that there's something in your heart, something in your soul that you believe you're supposed to do, but it scares you. Go ahead and do it. Because at the end of your life, the things you're going to regret are not going to be the things you did. They're going to be those things that you didn't do. And by then it's going to be too late to go back and do them. And I think, and I'm certainly guilty of this, I think a lot of people think with their fears and their insecurities instead of using their minds. So they're like, I'd like to start a business, or I'd like to go to graduate school, or whatever you want to do, whatever you feel is in your heart. And then they sort of pull back. They're like, oh, wait a minute. Wait, maybe I'm not smart enough, or maybe I don't have enough knowledge to do this, or what will people think about me if I fail? That's thinking with our fears and our insecurities. That's not thinking with our minds. I think the road to success is paved with failure. So anybody who's successful that tells you they never failed in their life is lying to you. We have to fail. But failure, you're not a failure unless you don't learn something from that mistake or from whatever it is that caused you, to stop. And the other thing I'll say about this is we, at least here in the United States, when we fail, when something gets in our way, when something impedes us from doing something, we don't just quit. We've got to blame somebody. We've got to blame our parents or our boss or our station in life. Very few people will ever get to where they want to be in life because they won't stop whining and complaining about where they're at. Very few people take personal responsibility for their own success and happiness. Nobody's coming to your rescue. Nobody's going to bail you out. Whatever you want in life, decide what that is and go after it with everything you have inside of you to be successful.
Mm-hmm. And I guess you did say there was more for younger people, but would you say it'd be the same for, I guess, older adults, maybe around that kind of 50, 60, who might be, I guess, finishing up with work and really not having their purpose from, I guess, which was work, and they start to kind of go down that little bit of spiral where a little bit of worthlessness. In a way, would you say that's the same thing to try and figure out your purpose then?
I would. I mean, I wrote a book in my 60s. So, I mean, certainly I never expected to, but it was an opportunity that presented itself. And I think a lot of times we talk about our purpose as being something that's singular, that's something that, there's one thing we're supposed to do. And once we do that, well, then, okay, that's it. And I just, at least in my life, I don't think that's the case. I played college basketball. So when I was young, I really felt my purpose was to be in sports, to be in athletics. And that got me to a college scholarship. And then as I got into adulthood, I mentioned I started out in business, but my passion or my purpose was to be in law enforcement. And now, having had cancer for 11 years, I honestly think that my purpose now has changed again to put as much goodness, as much positivity, as much love, motivation into the world as I possibly can. And I know we all like to think that our purpose, should align with our job or our occupation. That doesn't have to be the case. I mean, your job could be something you do over here to pay the bills, but your purpose is over here, and it's to paint or to write or to be a podcast or to teach or whatever it is that you feel you're supposed to do. So I would absolutely just suggest that people search their heart for the thing that they're supposed to do, especially older people. I mean, you've got so much life experience, so much experience in if you were in business or raising a family, and those qualities need to be transferred to the next generation. I mean, you can read a book about it, but I guarantee you, as a parent, if somebody was said, "Here, read this book, and it'll tell you how to be a parent," no, it wouldn't have. You sort of have to go to your parents or go to the people that raised you and say, "Hey, how'd you do that?" Okay, now you have an opportunity to take that knowledge, take those skills, and give them to somebody else that hopefully will keep the generation moving forward and will help you be a better parent and help you raise maybe better kids, better grandkids, whatever that ends up being.
Yeah, that's a great point, Terry. What you have is experience, and you can give that out to the community in multiple ways. Would like to move on to, I guess, what has been the key to your longevity and vitality?
I would say in one word, mindset. I really think it's everything starts in the mind. There's a healthcare organization here in the United States called the Cleveland Clinic, and they did a sort of a test or a survey on the mind, and they came to the conclusion that on any given day, we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts that pass through our mind, most of which we don't even pay attention to. But on average, 90% of those thoughts, or 90 or 95% of those thoughts, are the same thoughts from the day before, which means on any given day, we have roughly 3,500 new thoughts that come into our mind. And our minds operate at a speed of about 1,000 words a minute. Now, I'm old enough that I took typing class when I was in high school. 40 words a minute was really good. So 1,000 words a minute is like, I can't even fathom that. So we have so many ideas, so many things going through our mind that we really need to control those thoughts. There was a basketball coach here in the United States by the name of Bobby Knight, and he had a great saying. He said, "Mental is to physical as 4 is to 1. So here was this great coach teaching elite athletes to use their bodies to be successful on the basketball court. But what he was really saying with that quote is that your mind or your mindset is 4 times more important to your overall success than anything your physical body is going to do.
100% agree with that. Always the mind controls what you're doing, and it kind of pushes you forward when those challenges kind of come your way. And I guess moving on to that, how have you managed to maintain a positive outlook despite life's challenges and hardships?
Yeah, I wish I could say I was the poster child for positive outlook. Yes, I know how important it is, but I am still being treated for the cancer that I have, for the tumors in my lungs. And I go to treatment for an entire week, every 3 weeks. And there are times when I get down, when I feel sorry for myself, when, in all honesty, I cry. And I think of really kind of 2 stories that I heard. One was about a professor back in the 1950s at Johns Hopkins University here in the United States, who did a very simple experiment with rats. He took rats and he put them in a tank of water that was over their head. And he wanted to see how long the average rat could tread water. And initially, the average rat treaded water for about 15 minutes. And just as those rats were getting ready to sink and drown, he reached in, grabbed them, pulled them out, dried them off, and let them rest for a while. And then he took the exact same rats and put them back in that exact same tank of water. And the second time around, on average, those rats treaded water for 60 hours. Now think about that. The first time, 15 minutes. I'm just not my business isn't going to fail. I'm going to die. My life is going to be over. The second time around, 60 minutes, which told me 2 things. Number one, the importance of hope in our lives, that we have to believe that maybe not today, maybe not this month, maybe not even this year. But if we keep doing the things that we know we should be doing that are good for us, eventually we will get to the point where we want to be. And the second thing it taught me was just how much more our physical bodies can handle than we ever thought they could. We give up, we quit long before our bodies do. And that goes back to what we were talking about a minute ago in terms of mindset. You have to be able to control your mind, because your mind, as you eloquently put it, controls your body. And if you can't control your mind, it's very difficult to do those hard things that cause us to grow. And I think it's incredibly easy for us if we do one thing. And I try to do this every day of my life, so I'll offer this to your audience. Do one thing every day that scares you, that makes you nervous, that makes you uncomfortable, that's potentially embarrassing. It doesn't have to be a big thing, but if you do those small things every day, when the big disasters in life hit you, like, you get let go from your job, or, you find out you have a chronic or a terminal illness, or, somebody close to you dies, you'll be so much more resilient to handle those situations than the people who never try, that never get outside their comfort zones. So I guess that would be my recommendation, my answer to your question.
Yeah, that study you mentioned was fascinating, Terry, with the rats. And I guess the key thing to all of that is, like you mentioned, resilience. If you're able to kind of slowly build that resilience in your life, small little inconveniences or troubles won't, I guess, disturb you as much as what it did before. And I guess just for the listeners out there, what are some ways that you get out of your comfort zone, small or large, in your life, Terry?
Yeah, it's so simple if you think about it. Just do things that you don't want to do. Okay, I got to clean the house. I don't want to do that. Clean the house. I got to study for this test. I don't want to study for the test. Study for the test. I don't want to go to the gym. Go to the gym. For me, I have certain exercises I have to do. I'm an amputee. I'm too tired. I don't want to do that. Do those things. Do things every day. Friday, I ended up, I hate the dentist. Absolutely can't stand going to the dentist. And I picked up the phone and I made my 6-month dental appointment. Now, I'm sure your listeners are like, well, that's no big deal. When you dislike the dentist as much as I dislike the dentist, it is a big deal. So it's those little things that you don't want to do. I should go to the grocery store today. I don't feel like doing that. Go ahead and do that. Do those small things every day. The things you don't want to do, those are what make you resilient. Those are the things that it's so easy to say, I don't want to do that. But when you do the things that make you uncomfortable, you step outside your comfort zone. And when you step outside your comfort zone, you grow as a human being.
Yep, wise words. That's all I can say. I guess, how have you cultivated and nurtured meaningful relationships throughout your life?
I've remained curious, to be honest with you. I enjoy people. One of the jobs I had when I was in law enforcement was I was a SWAT team hostage negotiator. And when you were successful in that line of work, you were successful because you were curious. And we would use how and what questions with our the people we were negotiating with, and sort of stay away from why questions, because why sounds kind of accusatory. Why'd you do that, Jordan? Oh, wait a minute. Is he accusing me of doing something? As opposed to, well, what got us to this point, Jordan? So I really think, communicating with each other and just really being, and I'm sorry, I just had, this is a senior moment right now. My thought just went right out of my head. I totally apologize for that.
That's
Do
fine.
me a favor and ask me that question one more time, and I'll pick up from where I was.
That's totally fine, Terry. How have you cultivated and nurtured meaningful relationships throughout your life?
Yeah, thank you. Again, going back to being curious, I've always been curious about people. What made you do what you do? How did you get into this role and things like that? And I remember when I would, especially my wife is in the financial services industry, and We used to go to all kinds of events and parties and stuff like that. And I used to tell her, I said, I will go into this party. I said, and at the end of the night, I'll come out and I'll tell you about 5 people that you work with, and I'll tell you all about them. And she's like, no, yeah, that'll never work. And I said, and not only that, they won't know a thing about me. They won't ask me one single question. And so I would go up to people and I would just, hi, this is who I am. Are you from this area? Where did you go to school? Do you have kids? How did you meet you just start asking people questions. And we are so narcissistic that we love talking about ourselves. So people would just pour out all this information. So I'd get in the car at the end of the night and I'm like, okay, here's what you need to know about John. Here's what you need to know about Mary. Here's what you need to know about Sally. And then when my wife would go to work on Monday, these people would come up to her and they would say, your husband is such a great guy. And she would like, what questions did they ask you? They never asked me a thing. They just think I'm a good guy because I was curious. I was interested in their life. And I did that kind of as a party joke with my wife, but I really am interested in people. I like to know what makes people tick, how they got to where they are in their life, and what can I learn from them? We can all learn from each other. So I think being curious is an incredibly important thing that I don't care what age you are. You constantly need to cultivate that and find out what makes other people tick. At least I found that's what works for me.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Terry. How you were able to kind of get all that information without even having to ask. And yeah, like you said, listen more than you talk is a crucial point. And I guess in regards to, translating this into for older adults, I come across a lot of elders that kind of either lose friends who pass away and they're kind of left a little bit more alone, and then challenge kind of getting back and like joining groups or doing these kinds of things. And that's because of their limited by their, will to open up themselves and be curious, like you mentioned. So I guess if anyone's listening right now and are struggling to kind of meet new people or want to expand their kind of friendship groups, all you have to do is be interested in the other person, ask them things that they enjoy, and they'll open up. And then through asking them those questions, some things might click that that you align with or you enjoy and like to do in your spare time. And that's how it kind of goes forward. But if we don't really take that first step to ask them the questions or be curious, I think that's where a lot of people might, continue to have trouble finding new friendship groups or making new connections in their life. All right.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I remember reading a story or a study recently that, at least here in the United States, said that 86% of the people that were surveyed felt that they had a book in them, either a memoir or a fiction book that they wanted to write. And yet less than 1% of those people will ever write that book. And I think that kind of goes back to the issue of, yeah, I think I've got a book in me. Oh, well, maybe nobody's going to care about me. Nobody's going to care. I guarantee, I don't care what you did for a living. I don't care, if you were a stay-at-home housewife, if you were a CEO of a company, you have knowledge, you have skills that make you, at least to me, very interesting. I would love to talk to anybody, who's done anything in life. Don't think that your life, don't think that, oh, I didn't make a lot of money, or I wasn't important, or I wasn't influential. It's really not about that. I'll say this, Jordan. What I found in my life is that we seem to think that we are born empty, and that our job in life is, once we get out of school, sort of get into life, is to fill ourselves up. I've got to get a good education. I've got to make a lot of money, have a great job, drive a nice car, live in a nice house, have a great family. All that kind of stuff will fill us up. And then once we get all that stuff, it will make us happy. It will make us fulfilled. And what I found is it's just the opposite. It's not about what we get. It's what we give. We're all born with everything we need to be successful in life already inside us. We just need to find whatever that is, pull it out, and use it for our benefit. So instead of thinking, oh, my life was terrible, I never amounted to anything, be just the opposite. Say, no, instead of what can I get, be what can I give? My purpose in life should be not to get stuff, but to empty myself out with all my gifts and talents, certainly for the betterment of yourself, but also for the betterment of your family, your community, your country, whatever that ends up being. So don't look at it like, well, I didn't amount to much. No, you're very, very important. Take what you have and give it to other people. And I guarantee you, you'll have a ton of friends.
Very true. And I guess through my research and kind of preparing for this podcast today, Terry, I heard on another podcast that you did about you struggling with treatment for your cancer every couple of weeks, just so that others in the future that you might not know will benefit from the research and the results from you taking this. I think, was it a clinical drug? Yeah, so I thought that was really fascinating, although that you're having the troubles and maybe having to deal with it, and it's much harder. But hopefully in the future, they'll be able to kind of come out with something that's better for people through the results that you gave to them.
We hope so. I mean, that's, I started on this clinical trial drug with two other people, at least the facility where I get treated. They unfortunately have both passed away. So I've been doing this every 3 weeks for the last almost 3 years now. And even my nurses are like, why do you keep coming back? Why do you keep, when I get the drug, about 2 hours after I receive it, I shake violently. I'm nauseous and throw up. I have a headache. It's ugly. And they keep looking at me like, why do you keep doing this? And I think that's one thing I learned from team sports. I mentioned I played basketball all the way up till I graduated from college. And I think one of the things that team sports taught me, and I think it could be whatever team you're on, your family, your colleagues, if you're in a band, whatever it is in your life, is the importance of being part of something that's bigger than yourself. You realize on a team that if you don't do your job, not only do you let yourself down, but you let your teammates down, your coaches down, your fans down, your parents down, etc. And if you think about it, the biggest team game that we all play is this game of life. So the way I look at why I do this every 3 weeks, yes, I hope it helps me. And it certainly kept my tumors stable. I still have them, but they're stable. But I also look at it like maybe 5 years from now, maybe 10 years from now, somebody's life will be saved based on the data that the doctors are gleaning from my blood tests and my scans and the different tests that they do on me.
Nah, good on you, Terry. Keep it up. That's all I can say.
Thank you.
And so coming towards to the end of the podcast now, I've just got about 2 more questions for you. How have you approached and I guess dealt with regrets or missed opportunities in your life?
I really don't have a lot of regrets. I've done a lot of things in my life. In all honesty, the regrets that I have are more regrets when I was selfish, for lack of a better word, and that selfishness led to somebody else being hurt. And those are really the only regrets that I have. I've tried to make amends. I've tried to go back to those people and say, hey, I kind of acted like a jerk at this point in my life. I'm sorry that you were affected negatively because I acted that way. I hope you can forgive me. Some people have, some people have not. I can't do anything about the past other than learn from it. Just like anybody else, that was the greatest time in my life. Yeah, that was the greatest time in your life. But this is the time in your life. And we can't go back and relive those times. We can think about them and hopefully we can learn from them. But you have to, regardless of what you did in your life, good, bad, indifferent, hopefully you learn from it. You start from where you are right now. And I don't care if you're 60 or 70 or 80 or 90 years old, and you try to continue to move forward because life is designed to be lived forward. Like I said, nobody goes back and gets a do-over. I think a lot of us would like a do-over, but like I said, for the most part, it's been the times where I have hurt other people that I have regrets. Tried to make amends, can't do it in some cases that people have passed on, but for the most part, I've just tried to learn from the stupid stuff that I've done. And we've all done stupid stuff and hopefully learn and take that forward and not repeat that mistake again.
Yeah, that's the key for, I guess, anyone listening out there. If we can kind of not make that mistake again, that's all that matters, or try and avoid doing it again and hurting people that are close to you or the wider community. And so I finish off with this last question with everyone on the podcast, Terry. In your opinion, what is the most important ingredient for a happy and fulfilling life?
I'm going to use one word, and you and I were talking about this beforehand. I'm going to say the word love. As I mentioned, I played basketball most of my young life. And I remember when I was growing up, there was a basketball coach at UCLA, University of California at Los Angeles here in the United States, one of the best coaches that there ever was. And I read everything that he wrote. I read stuff about him. I watched all his interviews. And I'll never forget, one day I was watching an interview, and he was being interviewed by a sports reporter. And I had a pad and paper. I was taking notes. And somebody asked him, what's the most important thing that you want your players to learn, that you want your players to understand when they graduate from your program? And I was literally on that, the end of my seat. I'm like, okay, give me some good X's and O's here that I can use, when I'm playing basketball. And he said, I want people to understand the importance of love. Love what they do, love other people, and love themselves. If you do that in your life, you will be successful, however you define that term, that word successful. And I was just a kid. I was like, no, I want something that I can use on the basketball court. And I, to this day, realized that was one of the most impactful things that I have ever heard in my life. To love what I do, to love myself, and to love my fellow man. I think if you do that throughout your life, I don't care what you do for a living, I don't care how much money you make, I don't care anything else. That really is the bottom line to why we're all here. I have a fairly strong faith. I think we were all created in love, most of us, and I think it's important to let that love out as we age in our lives.
Beautiful. And that's a great way to finish up on the podcast. Again, thank you for carving out some time for me today, Terry, and I guess all the best with all your future endeavors.
Jordan, thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed talking with you today.
Thank you so much for joining me today on Longevity Unlocked. If you found today's discussion enlightening and you're eager to learn more about living your best and healthiest life well into your golden years, I invite you to hit that subscribe button right below. And if you've enjoyed our chat today, giving this video a quick thumbs up would mean the world to me. Your likes help us reach even more individuals who, like you and me, are passionate about unlocking the secrets to longevity. So this is Jordan signing off from the Longevity Unlocked podcast. Stay youthful, stay vibrant, and take care.